4 days down, 1 to go. What we heard and what we learned from Radio Row. That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for February 7th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thanks so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast, that's dope. If you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, that's great as well. The show continues to grow each and every day by way of YouTube, and that's because of your consistent support, Raider Nation, and because of the job that my man Ari does behind the scenes. We definitely appreciate him in a major way. Takes a lot of pride in his work, and believe me, we don't look good or sound good without Ari. So big ups to him. You can check him out on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And, of course, the guy that's been riding side-by-side shotgun with me all week long, Ryan Hogue. You can find him on Twitter at Ryan Scott Hogue. And we definitely appreciate him for his great insight, his great knowledge all week long here, Radio Row in New Orleans. Coming up on the show today, we're going to basically tell you what we feel like we learned from what we heard, what we observed, the conversations that we had with a couple of, one Raider and one former Raider. But I thought it was some really good conversations, some really good stuff that needed to be heard and needed to be said, and maybe even kind of reading in between the lines of what's not being said. So a lot of that coming up on the show, and we've got Maxx Crosby. I had a chance to catch up with him on my ESPN radio show early on Thursday on Greeny, and so myself and Hembo, you'll hear that conversation. It's probably only about 8 to 10 minutes. You'll hear that in segment number 3. Former Raider running back Josh Jacobs sat down at this table that we're at right now and talked to me right before I went on my local show. And so probably got a good 10 to 12 minutes with him. Really good stuff. I know a lot of Raider fans were salty and angry when he left. He didn't put out some message on Twitter saying how much he loved Raider Nation. But I think that, well, if you're salty and angry at Josh Jacobs, you might have a change of heart when you hear this conversation. Must-hear material. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Segment number 1, me and Ryan are just going to talk about what we heard from both guys and what we didn't hear from Maxx Crosby. We'll jump into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show. That's FanDuel. New customers could bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started today. So let's start right there with Maxx Crosby because he's current. He is a Raider right now. And I say that right now. Raider Nation's like, wait, hold on. What do you mean he's a Raider right now? Well, when he joined the show, Ryan, I got into the conversation. I asked him, of course, about Pete Carroll. He was at the press conference, and he said that, man, they're a ball of energy, and they've got a big boom box upstairs. It's almost like a club. Like, he's like, man, I haven't been around something like that. It's almost like me walking around with music in my pocket. And, again, you'll hear this in segment number 3. But then I asked him about Myles Garrett. And the fact that when we got here and on Monday on Radio Row, that's when we found out about Myles Garrett requesting a trade from the Browns. And so, it's funny. I talked to Cam Jordan on, I want to say Tuesday. No, maybe it was Wednesday here on Radio Row. And Cam Jordan, obviously a longtime defensive end there for the Saints, and he hasn't won a ring. And so when I asked him about Myles Garrett, he said, good for him. He deserves to. Right, he should. They're not winning there. They stink. It's not, hey, Cam Jordan losing in New Orleans is not the same as Myles Garrett losing in Cleveland. Like, they're really bad. So I thought I'd ask Max what his thoughts were. And, he basically, Ryan said, we're kind of in the same boat. Now, he didn't say he wanted a trade or anything, but he said we're kind of in the same boat, right? I mean, he's one of the best in the league. He's a guy that could be in the defensive player of the year conversation each and every year. He has a couple years left on his deal with no guaranteed money. And he's not doing a lot of winning. And Max said, we're basically the same guy. Again, he didn't come out and ask for a trade. I don't think he's going to get traded. I'll put that out there. I don't think he's going to request a trade. But it sounded like some frustrations were starting to bubble up.
Well, we're talking about the Browns and the Raiders.
Yeah.
And over the past 20 years, the two most losing franchises in the NFL out of all 32.
Yeah.
You and I are competitors.
Right.
We love to win.
Yes.
Right? We love to win more than we making money or anything, right?
Right.
That's not what it's about for us. It's about, putting ourselves, and football is the ultimate team sport. That's why I loved it.
Yeah.
11 guys have to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
If one of the 11 doesn't, you won't be successful. And so collectively, like the imprint you leave on your legacy, essentially.
Right,
That's
right.
the word I'm looking
and
for.
And Max talks about legacy all the time.
Yeah, your legacy is based on how you've cultivated a a program and ended up, wins and losses, right? And so you don't want to be the asterisk Hall of Famer, right? The guy that guy was so good, but boy, he was just on bad teams.
Charles Barkley. Well, even Charles Barkley went on a bad team. He just never won a ring, right? Because of Mike. But
Dan Marino.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to be that guy that
because that's what everybody talks about.
Phenomenal player.
They don't talk about
the
championships. They talk about the fact that you didn't win.
Right.
And so I can sense it, and he doesn't have to say that he would be open to a trade. By the way he responded, by the amount of butts, by the amounts of pauses, I just get the feeling like that although he's probably liking what he's hearing, part of him is like, hey, it was just Groundhog Day.
Right. Right. I mean, and he said that. And again, you'll hear the interview coming up in segment number 3. He said that, when he basically said that, hey, look, I've had 5 coaches, in 5 years or whatever the case may be. And look, I mean, I've been in Vegas since 2021. There's been Gruden, Bisaccia, McDaniels, Pierce, and now Carroll. I mean, the math don't math. Right? So that's a lot of turnover, and he talks about that all the time. And so, again, I don't want anybody to hit the panic button and saying, oh, my gosh, he's going to do this, that, and the third. But, I mean, he spent a lot of time on Radio Row on Thursday talking to a lot of different outlets, including ESPN, and he never once came out and said, no, I don't want to be anywhere else.
What I extrapolated from that was he in his mind, this is as thin as it comes, right? Yeah. He said, I don't want to ring chase.
Right.
I just want to go to a championship culture.
Yep.
Right. He said, I do not want to go to a team like the Chiefs and just, win a ring.
Right.
I want to go somewhere that they're completely committed. And I'm sure they've had a conversation. He even said he sat up in the GM's office multiple times where they've convinced him this is the direction. Here's how we're going to get there. Right. I'm sure they just had that same conversation. And I'm sure he was just like on board and excited, but in the back of his mind, like you and I would probably have when we've been told, boy who cried wolf over and over again, like, okay.
Sounds good.
I've heard that.
But you got to show me.
You got to show me.
Right. And so that's something that he's talked about, and I've talked about it on the show myself, where, I know he has no guaranteed money on his contract, left on his contract. He does have 2 years, and I've been talking about this since summer, right? I was like, man, look, this is coming down the pipeline. He's not going to go on the field for no guaranteed money, and nor should he. Right, he's that good of a player. He shouldn't have to do that. And so, and he's made it be known, hey, the contract's a situation as well. But also, what's the plan? What's the plan to winning? How are we going to get there? I think that he does have confidence and belief in Pete Carroll, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to hear the plan and really know that the plan is a real foolproof. It's not just a plan; it's actually the plan.
Exactly. My question to you, Q, if a team came to us with the offer of a first-round draft pick,
yep.
We'll just say number 15. I don't know who's picking 15.
Right.
For Maxx. Right. I mean, as you said, there's no guarantee. It's a very doable contract for any team that would take that on because there's not a lot of pressure.
Right.
Right. Would you entertain it initially?
I would say no, and this is why. I was at the press conference when Pete Carroll and John Spytek were introduced, and they referenced Maxx multiple times, right? And he is the type of player that they want, right? They want that competitor. They want that guy that doesn't want to come off the field. They want that guy that wants to leave it all out there and
loves ball.
That's what they want, and that's what they need for an example. But as you know, you played, I didn't. This is the NFL, and there could be a team that says we're one Maxx Crosby away.
And we recognize that we're not just one player away, right? And so
and that's the reality of it. That's been the theme here all week, right?
Yeah. If we can get 6 guys, right? I mean, I think it was Jeff Schwartz that talked about we just need dudes.
Yeah.
Right? And you said it over and over again. Yep. And we know we need more than 1. We need more than 2. We need more than what the draft's going to provide.
Right.
Right. We need to use that $100 and some million of cap space.
Right.
But we also, it's again, and I'm simply trying to start a conversation about saying if like a king's ransom came in for Maxx Crosby.
Right.
We would at least have to have the conversation of, well, we are X amount of players away. We talked a little bit about it on the show of, right? I mean, you look at the position group wise, we are thin at a lot of position groups, meaning we need players, we need starters, and we need depth at all the positions.
Right.
You can do that through the draft. You can do that through trading a marquee player. Again, why trade your best player like that full stop? Like he's the face of your franchise and this and that. However, you have to listen. when you're in the situation that we are.
If there's an offer out there, I mean, you definitely have to listen to it. And again, I don't think I don't feel like he's going to go in there at some point and ask for a trade like Myles Garrett did. But at the same time, I could sense that he wants to win. He wants to win desperately. He said on other outlets that, I'm not going to play forever, right? I want to hoist a Lombardi. I want to be that guy. And so I could see him again. If the plan doesn't sound right to him, then again with that contract saying, okay, well maybe we need to go in different directions. Not like I said, not because he doesn't love being a Raider, not because he doesn't want to be a Raider, but he also wants that ultimate opportunity to be a winner.
But didn't Spytek also say at the press conference, or piggybacking off of what you're saying essentially is how important defensive line, like that was a position that they drafted and they drafted. You don't let good D linemen go.
Right.
And that to me right there spoke volumes. I mean, maybe it was to kind of create some positive, feelings for Maxx. Maybe they knew that he was not exactly feeling it and like, hey, I don't know if you guys are going to trade me. I'm hearing all these things. And, for him to go out and say like, all right, we need to make a statement to Maxx. But we also know that there's a lot of false narratives in the NFL, regardless of what's being said.
No doubt. And look, and you'll hear it in segment number 3. He had fun with the different the trade conversations. Like, man, I opened up my phone. It's like, oh, it's the Bills. We're going to trade. He's going to be traded there. He's going to go to the Packers. He's going to go to Detroit. I mean, he's like, I can't even open my phone without seeing another team up there. And he laughed it off again, but never on any of the outlets that I heard him do on Thursday did he ever say that, well, it's never out of the possibility. And again, this just came from me asking about Myles Garrett.
Yeah, you would think if he wanted to, and maybe he's because of positioning power, he doesn't want to, but he's never looked in the camera and said, I want to finish my career as a Las Vegas Raider.
Right.
I mean, at least recently.
Right.
He might have said in the past, like, I want to retire a Raider and that'd be, all bells and whistles and things like that. But, if you wanted to stop all that, I mean, he could easily squash it.
Right, exactly. But then again, that goes against his contract negotiations as well, as they're working on it. And so, again, I don't blame him on that. Any money that you can get, all the money you get, go get it. Go get it because the NFL stands for not for long. So while you can get it and you're still playing at the highest level, you definitely do that. So that was all things Maxx Crosby. And you'll hear that conversation coming up in the third segment as we close out today's Locked On Raiders podcast and close out the week. But I want to pivot, Ryan, and we'll talk about it before we even pitch it to the interview. But I want to let you hear from former Raider running back Josh Jacobs, who got an opportunity to catch up with him. I got a lot of respect for him. Anyone who's listened to this show knows that. And, Thursday, the conversation I had with him gave me even more respect for him, and I think it will for you as well. That's coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. I do want to remind you that this show is being sponsored by Betterhelp. What are some of your relationship green flags? We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what if we focus more on identifying the positive signs in our relationships, those green flags? If you're not sure what they look like, well, therapy can help identify them, actively practice them, and even embody that green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you from relationships that love you back. Therapy helps develop boundaries and improves your communication skills and empowers you to set clear expectations and express your needs in relationships. Therapy provides tools for managing conflicts in ways that strengthen your connections rather than break them down. Right now, you can discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Again, BetterHelp.com. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Segment number 1, we talked all things Maxx Crosby. You'll hear from him coming up in segment number 3, but want to get into the conversation, and I want you to hear the conversation that I had with, former Raider running back Josh Jacobs. I know he's still a fan favorite, and Ryan, I mean, you knew that it was a really good interview when when I was done with it. I was like, man, I just had a phenomenal conversation with Josh.
Your eyes were saucers. I mean, you were like, hey, I can't wait to tell you everything he said and everything he didn't say, and I kind of looked at you quizzically like, what does that mean? And you're like, just wait.
Yes.
And I waited and I listened, and my eyes opened and my mouth dropped a little bit, and also it struck a personal nerve because it brought me back to my days playing in similar situations, certainly not to that degree, but it made me really feel for him.
Yeah, no, it did. It did. And again, I've always had a lot of respect for him even before he was drafted. And Ryan, real quick, man, in 2019 when the Raiders drafted him, I'm a big draft guy, and I love Alabama football, so I knew who Josh Jacobs was. And I was pounding the table. The Raiders had 3 first-round picks, and I was like, man, go get Josh Jacobs. But, you don't draft a running back in the first round. I was like, no, get him. He doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on his tires. He was like the 3rd running back in that Alabama system at the time. He can catch the rock out of the backfield. He can run really well. And, again, he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear, which is different than most Alabama running backs. Well, the Raiders do and go get him in the first round. So we had a relationship going back to Nashville, and he, to his credit, has continued to respect that relationship like I respect it the whole time he's been in the league, and never switched it up. Now that he's in the league and he's a big time player and a superstar, never switched it up, which I always respected about him. But he's been also real, and when he would talk to us after games and tell us what was going on, you just kind of knew that this is a real dude, and he was genuine with what he was saying. So listening to what he had to say, obviously having a great season in Green Bay. Just to think about this, he's only 26 years old. You hear him talk about it, and he's like the OG. He's the veteran on the roster when Green Bay, where they have the youngest team in the league.
Yeah, and that's exciting if you're a Green Bay fan,
right?
Because youngest team in the league in the last 2 years, they've like had double-digit wins, and they have a young quarterback. And anytime you can have really good players at the specialty positions and have them on rookie contracts, like Green Bay has so many guys, you're going to be good for a long time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it, man. The conversation I had with Josh Jacobs on Radio Row on Thursday, again, fantastic stuff. And for any Raider fan out there that was very angry and salty and upset by the way he left and think that, he turned his back on the organization, just listen to this with an open mind. I'm not going to tell you how to feel. I'm not going to tell you what to root for and who to root for, but just listen to it with an open mind, and you make your own decisions. Here's that conversation from earlier with Josh Jacobs. We here back on Media Row, and we've got current Green Bay Packer running back and a former Raider running back, Josh Jacobs, still a big fan favorite. And Josh, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Can't complain.
I'm so glad to see you. And I'll tell you, man, when it became news that you were going to go to Green Bay as a free agent, I had a lot of people that I know in Green Bay hit me and say, hey, tell me something about Josh Jacobs. And I just want to tell you about you, because I could tell them that you're a hard runner, you're a leader. I said, man, Week 18 versus Denver Broncos, Josh didn't play. That was the last game that you were in that locker room, right? Yep. After the game in the locker room, you came up to me and said, hey, you've been A1 since day one. You came across the locker. You didn't play?
Yep.
You didn't have to come and say anything. But you said, I don't know what's going to happen, but
I appreciate it. Yeah.
That tells you about you.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? And that meant something to me. I tell that story all the time. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, man, no problem, man. I always try to view it, y'all job is not easy either, especially when, you're not winning. It's kind of hard to come into those locker rooms and have those conversations with guys that really don't want to talk.
Right.
So I always try to make it y'all job as easy as possible, and give y'all the truth and answers.
Yeah.
And also, stay true to myself too.
Well, I just wanted to appreciate you for that, because like I said, that meant a lot to me. And again, we go back since 2019, before you even got drafted. So fast forward to the season that you had. I still remember the first game in Brazil. You guys came up a little bit short, but it kind of set the tone there. What was this last season like for you? With 17 touchdowns on the ground, you were an absolute monster.
Man, it was like a breath of fresh air, honestly, man. Just coming in with a team that's, got a lot of young guys, a group of young guys, have a history of winning.
Right.
Being able to come in and feel like I was the missing piece, to be able to come in and, lead the right way and put my stamp on the game. I feel like that was the biggest thing for me. But also, man, a lot of people wrote me off, man. And it was funny to me because I'm like, dog, y'all don't know. I really got a lot in the tank. I really feel the best that I've ever felt. Right now. And it was funny because I was talking to Marshawn Lynch, and he was like, "Man, I feel like I didn't hit my prime till I was 27." He was like, 27 to 31 is like your prime.
Right.
And I remember having a conversation. I'm like, man, we gonna see how this season come out. I had a real injury. When I left the Raiders. It took me half of the offseason to be able to get right. Really, and to this day, I still have a little bit of bone in my leg from that, But I was like, man, I felt good. I played the whole season.
Yeah, you did.
Didn't have any major injuries, and just try to leave my stamp on every game.
No, you did. You did an awesome job with that. Again, Josh Jacobs is with us here at Raider Nation Radio 920. I go back to the Brazil game. At the end, Jordan Love got hurt.
Yeah.
So you went a couple weeks, and Malik Willis was the guy. But that's when they really leaned heavy on, hey, we got this guy that we just brought in, Josh Jacobs. What did it mean to you to know that, hey, it's going through me?
Man, I'm not gonna lie to you. I sat down with our coach and Matt, and I was just like, man, like, trust me.
Yeah.
Like, I got you. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but we going to figure it out. He was like, man, we going to go through you. And then once he said that, it was on. Like, you know, the game started coming back to back. And it was like, man, I just felt like I was in a certain type of zone. And, you know, they started scheming plays for me. They throwing me the ball and things like that. I'm like, man, this is stuff that I've been asking for. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, like, I was loving it, man.
Speaking of throw you the ball, you got your first receiving touchdown in your career.
Yeah.
I remember the game against Seattle. I want to say it was Seattle where you caught a touchdown pass, but it was a penalty.
It was a penalty,
so it got called back, and so you didn't get one with the Raiders. And I kept saying, why aren't they throwing on the rock? And I know that's what you wanted too.
Man, I never understood it because coming out at a draft, that was like one of my biggest, you know, pros. They was like, he catches the ball. Like, I had, you know, receiving touchdowns at Bama. So I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, you know? And so when I got to the Raiders, I think that, like, I ran the ball so good that they almost forgot that I could catch the ball.
Right.
And it was like one of those things where I cook people at practice and, like, I don't really drop the ball that much, but I never really just get a chance to run real routes. Like, I might run it like a wide route or whatever. So this year, I told our quarterback early, I'm like, Jordan, if you got in doubt or anything, throw me the ball, bro.
Right.
Like, if it's one-on-one or even if it's a little, I'm going to make you right. And it just happened to play out where a lot of the times he was dumping me off the ball, I make one guy miss, and now I'm going for 30 and I'm going for 40.
Right.
So it's been fun.
And you have a pretty young team, and Jordan Love is still coming into himself as a quarterback, as a franchise quarterback. What is it for you to be really a leader? Even though they just brought you in, you're still the leader.
Man, it's weird, bro. I'm not going to lie. Like, the leader part is not weird, but, like, being the youngest team in the NFL and me literally only being 26, and I'm like one of the oldest guys, it's kind of like, I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is a weird situation. But what I can say, man, is I've been through so much in this league, whether it's, you know, on the field, off the field, whatever, that I feel like the experience that I've accumulated over this time is, like, really valuable. And a lot of the guys, I really didn't notice it until, like, a lot of the younger guys would start coming up to me and like, man, what you think about this? How did you go about this when you got injured? What did it look like? How did you prepare? How do you, when you have a bad game, how do you reset? And I always tell people, like, I always believed in myself. I could fumble the ball and I'm still gonna think that nobody on the field can mess with me.
Right.
Like, and that's just how I feel.
You have to have
like,
that mentality, right?
Come on, man. You have to,
You
bro.
have to.
And you have to believe in yourself because we do too much work to not be able to believe in yourself, man. You know? So that was the biggest thing. But being able to come in and be a leader, like a vocal leader, and really, like, put my image and my, you know, or whatever into the Packers organization. And, you know, I love the Raiders, man. You know, I love the people in the building. I still talk to Chris. I still talk to Adam. I still talk to all these guys.
Right.
And to be able to say, like, I have a relationship with them and being able to do it the same way over at the Packers, man, it's been lovely for me.
It's just a testament to who you are, right? And there's a reason why they brought you in as a free agent. And, of course, there was the narrative about the running backs. You don't pay a net running back. You don't pay a running back.
Yeah.
You, Saquon Barkley, who's playing in this game coming up, right? Derrick Henry, you guys all led your teams. What did that mean for you just as a running back personally?
Man, let me say this first, man, because I really haven't spoke on it. So
Okay.
I want to clear the air.
Okay.
While I have the chance, especially for, you know, Raiders fans. I love the Raiders fans. I love the organization. I always wanted to be one of those guys that I played at one organization for my whole career.
Yeah.
The things I would say to fans is they always bring up loyalty, right? But they don't never hold the organizations to the same type of loyalty that they hold the players to. And at the end of the day, like I tell people, I could have came in, won rushing title in the league. We could have had conversations then.
Yeah.
We didn't have it. We never had a conversation. Came in, was like, oh, we're not picking up your fifth-year option. I'm like, okay. Well, what we doing? Like, oh, we gonna franchise tag you? And I'm like, the things that was said, I really don't want to throw the guys that was there at the time under the bus, but they basically told me to shut up and play.
Right.
Like, long story short, they told me to shut up and play. They said, They told me, they said, man, we're going to franchise tag him. He going to play, and that's going to be what it is. And honestly, I was preparing myself not to play at all that year.
Yeah.
I was preparing myself to play 4 games, the last 4 games, to get credit of the season and then move on and figure it out and let them keep the money.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, I felt like I gave my heart and my soul to the organization. I felt like losing or whatever, like the ups and downs, I was always, you can never say that I went out there in a game and I didn't try or I didn't play hard, I didn't play through injuries, or that I, whatever. And I always, was a great teammate. So for me, it was just like, man, what more do I have to prove that I love it here and that I'm one of the guys that should be, go down as a great here.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I was just like, for the longest, my agent was like, man, Josh, like, they are not offering you nothing. Like, you keep trying to give him chances. He was like, you got to leave. Like, and I'm just like, man, I'm like, I met with him. I said, look, man, I have 8 teams right now offering me more than what y'all offer me. I said, can y'all at least meet me in the middle?
Right.
They said, no, we can't do that.
Wow.
I said, okay. I'm like, all right, I understand. The market at that time was whatever. I said, okay, well, if I take the number that y'all offer me, which was 3 for 10, 3 for 30, 10 a year. I said, can I at least put incentives in my contract that if I hit them, I get it, and if I don't, I don't.
Right.
It's not really,
That'd be on you.
It'll be on me.
Right.
You putting it on me. They looked at me and said, no.
Wow.
I said, well, then what do we have to talk about? And, so it's funny to me because everybody, they perceive it a different way than what it actually happened.
Yeah.
It's like I never wanted to leave. I never wanted that to be the reality. I literally tried everything I could to make it work. But after a while, you're not going to just keep saying F you to me and then expect me to just sit there and be like, okay, yeah, that's not who I am. So it is what it is. Like I said, at the end of the day, I still love the organization. I still have love for the fans. Hopefully one day, man, when this is over, I can still come back and light the torch, but it just played out how it played out, man, and it is what it is.
It is what it is. It's professional sports. Obviously, you did what you had to do. You went to Green Bay. You dominated, right? And that's just year one. So I know with a very young team, you got an opportunity to keep this growing, right?
Yeah.
And keep going. So you're going to keep doing what you're doing. I'm already knowing. Before I let you go, I know you got to go. Just as a kid growing up, what was your favorite player or favorite sport? Or what got you going?
Okay, so my favorite player all time was LaDainian Thompson. I also loved Adrian Peterson because I'm from Oklahoma.
Right.
So, he was Mr. Oklahoma.
Mr. Oklahoma.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I love watching their games. But I was more of a fan of the older guys like the Barry Sanders, the Walter Paytons. But I used to just watch how they ran the ball. And whenever you slow it down, to me, it always looked like poetry. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I would love to be one of those guys one day. Never thinking it was a reality for me. But now that I'm here, man, I'm blessed, man. I'm happy, man. I thank God every day to be able to be in this position and to do what I'm doing and being able to touch and impact, the lives of others. So, man, I have no complaints.
You are one of the guys. Hey, keep doing what you do, man. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me.
Really powerful stuff, man. Really powerful stuff. I mean, like you said, him talking about the whole contract situation, how it all shook out, and him going through the contract without me asking about the contract. I didn't ask him the contract. I asked about the running back position being, kind of respected now because Henry, Barkley, and him all great seasons, and Saquon Barkley is playing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it's really disappointing that it got to that point. It's really disappointing that, the fans responded the way they have.
Yeah.
It's a natural response. It's
Right.
a visceral response when your favorite player leaves or one of your best player leaves for another team. You immediately go to the why, and you
Right.
create narratives in your head as to why. And
Right.
the Raiders didn't do a good job of kind of telling the story. They want to save face, of course. Right. And Josh Jacobs was the consummate professional of not putting anybody on blast, waiting a full year before he wanted to say anything, which, again, I don't know that I could have held my tongue that long.
Right, especially when you see people online talking about, oh, he turned his back, oh, he's this and that.
Ripping him.
Yeah, he's a drama queen, he's a diva. Even when I tweeted out that I got a really good interview, Josh Jacobs has a message like, I don't want to hear it. He's a drama queen, he's a diva, he's this and that and the other. And I was like, That's not him at all.
No.
That's not him at all. So, again, I'm not going to tell you how to feel. That's not my place. All I can do is provide the material. You go over it, and you decide if you want to take the test.
Be
and
the
pass.
judge.
Right, exactly. You do what you want to do, and I'm good with that. But I just, like I said, I'm just delivering the mail, right? And just letting you know that there's a chance it might rain. So if you want to put a coat on, put a coat on, like the weatherman, right? If you don't, that's fine too. It's your thing. I'm just delivering it. That's it. So I just, again, got a lot of respect for Josh, and you're here to witness it. He was leaving. He was about 45 minutes to an hour past due.
Over his time.
Over his time, but he made it.
Sought you out and said, I got you. I'm not
you.
going to leave without talking to you. That's unbelievable for a player. Like, even me, that would be hard for me to do. You know, we're getting pulled in so many different
Yep.
He is a star player.
Yep.
Right? But it's about relationship building. You've done a great job with that.
Well, and he, honored that relationship and said, I will not leave without coming back and talking to you. And he absolutely did that. And then he got kind of hooked into doing a couple of other interviews, and he stayed a little bit extra time. But, again, that just kind of tells you the person he is. Well, he's a former Raider. Well, a current Raider sat with me and sat with Hembo on ESPN Radio early on Thursday morning on Greeny. That's Maxx Crosby. You'll hear that conversation coming up next on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the show, and that's including the title sponsor, which is FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bet as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. What do you have to do to get in on the action? It's real simple. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, well, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. I also want to tell you about PrizePicks. And as you know, again, we're in New Orleans for a reason. The big game, it's almost here. There's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks. It's the best place for daily fantasy sports with over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded. PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. So how does it work? Well, you pick more or less on at least two players' projections. If you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game. Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Guess what? That's happening. Pair that with one more correct pick, and you're cashing out just like that. So you want to get in on this action? Good. Download the app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Here we go, Raider Nation, segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Time to get into the conversation that I had with Maxx Crosby on ESPN Radio early on Thursday, filling in for Greeny, and I'll be doing that again on Friday, closing out the week. And then the new show with Joe Fortenbaugh starts on Monday. Excited about that. Noon to 3 Eastern, 9 a.m. to noon Pacific time. Just simple, Joe and Q on ESPN Radio. But we'll be doing that starting on Monday. But myself and Hembo had an opportunity to catch up with Maxx Crosby on Thursday morning, and it was really good stuff from him. And here he is. Here's the conversation with Maxx Crosby and Hembo on ESPN Radio.
Pete Carroll is the new voice in Las Vegas with the Raiders, and they have a very loud voice, respected voice, and a hell of a player on the field as well, and that would be Maxx Crosby, the 4-time Pro Bowler, Raiders defensive end. He joins us here on Greeny on ESPN Radio on the ESPN app, and Max knows I'm in Vegas. He's like, I can't get away from this guy.
He's following me. I'm kind of concerned now, for real. It's an honor, bro. It's great to see you. It's a familiar face, a real one. So it's good to see you, brother.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. Great to be seen. And well, we haven't really got to talk to you since Pete Carroll was named the head coach. You were there at the press conference. What did you think? What about the energy, which matches your energy? What did you think about Pete Carroll?
Yeah, everything I've experienced so far has been incredible. I've had some awesome conversations with him. He's very straightforward with his approach, talking about competing, talking about energy. They literally got like JBL speakers upstairs. It sounds like a nightclub up there when you walk up there. So that's a little bit different.
Right.
I love that, though. That's who I am. Like, if anybody that knows me, like, I'm walking around the building, I'm just blaring music in my pocket. I'll forget sometimes. I'm, like, bumping Chief Keef in the hallway. They're like, bro, your phone is still on. But I love that type of energy. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we're modern-day gladiators. You're putting your life on the line to go out there and play this game. It's dangerous. It's balls to the wall. And if you don't have fun with it, you're going to be miserable. At the end of the day, the work ethic, the work comes first, but you have fun while you're doing it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So it's been cool so far for sure.
So in Seattle, obviously he enjoyed immense success, and in large part because he built some of the great defenses in the NFL this century. You're the best player on that defense, in my opinion, one of the very best in the game today. Do you feel like this could represent an identity shift potentially in a division with so many good quarterbacks, given his experience in Seattle building great defenses?
Yeah, he's done it before. You know what I mean? On the collegiate level, in the NFL, that's what's extremely encouraging. And then you add a Tom Brady to the mix, who's done it at the highest level. You got new ownership, guys that are, billionaires in their own right, in their own business, from private equity. Like, everything across the board, like, everybody excels and wins in what they do. And super encouraging. For me, I'm taking it one day at a time. You know what I mean? I'm literally one step at a time along the way. But, yeah, for me, I see those defenses. I played in that system before. You know what I mean? When we had Gus Bradley, we were in that system. I learned, I had to be the big end. I'm playing 6-tech, rushing on the edge, doing all my things. And, it made me a better player. So super encouraged. I know Pete has a defensive background. He has a defensive mind. And he's brought great players in, and he's found how to find the right quarterback. So we'll see what that is. I don't know. Obviously I love Aiden too. Like we'll see how that shakes out. But like I said, I'm taking it one step at a time, and moving forward. Obviously in my situation, like been public about it. We're working through the contract situation as well, and for me, I'm just being present, soaking it all in.
Maxx Crosby is with us here on Greeny on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app alongside Hembo. I'm Q Myers, and you mentioned the contract. Get something done there. We saw Myles Garrett, who's a hell of an edge rusher, come out and ask for a trade. What did you think when you saw that?
I wasn't expecting it. You know what I mean? I was working out, and then I heard the news after, and for a guy like that, he's one of the best in the game. Somebody, me and him have been the two DNs in the Pro Bowl. Me, him, and Trey, 4 years in a row now. Right. Been all pros together. Like, that's my competition at the same time. Like, I look up to him in ways, but also I'm the guy. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. So he's a great player, great dude, and I know he wants to win. He's got that mindset. He wouldn't be in that position if he didn't have that mindset. So I feel like we can, we definitely, we've had conversations. I haven't talked to him since the news, but he wants to win, and also he wants to be compensated. You know what I mean? We're contractually, we're kind of in the same boat. He's got 2 years. Not guaranteed. Like, he's one of the best players in the world. Like, I'm one of the best players in the world. That's got to be taken care of. It's a business at the end of the day. So, what you bring to the table on and off the field, you deserve to be paid that way as well. You want to win as a competitor. The contract, that'll take care of itself. Yeah. But the work comes first, and winning comes first, and a guy like that's been in Cleveland for 8 years and hasn't won much. Right. I've been in Vegas for 6 years.
You've been in the same situation.
It's been tough. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm not going to lie. I've had 5 coaches, and it's not even been 7 years yet. That's a lot, and you're expected to lead and a new group of guys every year. It's not easy. But at the end of the day, you just, like I said, I'm taking it one step at a time. I'm not trying to – people are going to have their rumors. I can't even open my phone without looking at a rumor of where I'm getting traded. And a new fan base every other week. It's like – now it's the Bills. They won't leave me alone. They won't leave me alone. It's funny. And now you just that's how it goes. Like Green Bay, you got all these teams that are coming out, we want you, blah, blah, blah. Come this way. Yeah. For me, at the end of the day, it's a blessing in disguise. It really just it comes down to respect. And you have all these teams that want a part of you, and it's cool. But, I look at it I really go back to when I was a kid, thinking – if I would have fast forward and seen the 27-year-old version of myself and seeing how far I've come and what I'm doing, I can't stress about that. I'm so blessed to be here. I'm in the prime of my career. I'm doing everything above and beyond. I didn't even think. I don't even know I would be here. So, just taking it literally one step at a time. Contract, future, present, all that stuff. I'm gonna let it play out the way it's supposed to and do it calculated. I got a small circle, a great team around me. We're gonna do what we're gonna do. So
on the field, your production is off the charts. My single favorite thing about your game is that you play every snap. You're one of the few players in the NFL that plays your position that never leaves the field. How much pride do you take in that aspect of your game, and why do you believe it's so incredibly instructive when figuring out your next contract that you're an every down player?
Yeah, I think it's more of a pride thing. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, everyone's going to have an opinion about what you should do. But in reality, nobody is willing to do what I do on a daily basis. I was up at 4:45 this morning, walking across Bourbon Street, making my agent come and work out with me because I got to rehab and work out. Nobody's doing that. You know what I mean? So it starts with that. People can talk about, oh, Max, you need to take more plays off. That's why you got hurt this year. Oh, he's going to start getting – I've missed 5 games and I've played 6 years. So I think I'm doing pretty damn well. And my 2 injuries this year were from getting rolled up in piles. One was a cheap shot. The other, with all due respect, it happens, but got chopped from the side and got my ankle stuck in the ground. Same thing happened against Baltimore. Yeah. And that was a game where I won the player of the week. You know what I mean? I had an incredible game. It's literally second to last play, and I get rolled up by 3 people falling into me. That's just unfortunate. So people are going to be like, oh, well, the snaps starting to add up.
Right.
I played 500 straight snaps on a high ankle sprain and went out there and produced and made another Pro Bowl. So people can say what they want. I was playing it not 100%. I'm not making excuses. But I'm just going to say this, you have not seen the best version of me yet, and I can't wait for everyone to see that. So, yeah, I take a lot of pride in that, and it starts with my training. I don't think anybody trains at the level I do. With all due respect, I train all year round. Everywhere, if I have to travel out of town, it's my meal prep. I have a fridge stocked for me. I have a microwave everything across the board I want to be elite at on and off the field, and that's why I'm able to do what I do, and I feel like that's what separates me from everybody else.
Big time.
So, Ryan, we talked a lot about Max in segment number 1. You heard from Max there. You heard clips on social media. Heard him on the Kay Adams show. He was on Outkick. He was on a lot of different outlets out there. Even, like I said, even Outkick, one that's not a friend of mine, but that's okay. I'll still shout him out. So he was all over the place, right? He was all over the place. And, again, there was just never a matter of fact, yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
A definitive statement.
Right. We'll get the contract situation worked out, but I'm ready to go. Can't wait to get on the field. That was never, ever said. He did say the contract will work itself out, and I believe it will. Again, I don't want to get anybody's panic meter up and rising and think that, oh, my gosh, he's about to request a trade. But, again, I think he's leaving all options out there, and like he said, I'm just working. I'm just working, trying to rehab and get ready for next year.
Cautious and calculated. That's what I would call the interviews I've seen, right? And which is smart. He's being pragmatic.
He's a veteran.
Yeah, he's a veteran. He knows that his money's on the line, right? He doesn't want to piss people off,
right?
Whether that's the Raiders organization or if they decide to move on or do something, right? He doesn't want to piss off fan bases, or he wants to be appreciated. He wants to be adored, but he also knows that there are a lot of question marks going into this season. Right, and he knows that he is not due any guaranteed money. Right, those 2 facts alone would cause my head to be spinning and not wanting to answer questions. Right, but to his credit, he's standing up there. He's taking them, whether it's Kay Adams or you. He is taking it on national TV. Not saying, "Hey, don't ask me about this." He's like, "Hey, I'm going to answer it however I need to answer it." Right, and so shout out to him for being a professional, standing up, looking people in the eye and answer it to the best of his ability. But I will say the fact that there are gaps, there are pauses, there are a lot of ums or wells or buts, that tells me that, nothing in his mind is made up in terms of again, as a player that played.
Right.
My thought would be if I knew that for sure I was going back to the Raiders, I wouldn't be answering the same way. But we're not the same people. So.
Right, for sure. And I'm glad you brought up the fact that, he's answering the questions where he doesn't have to. The perfect example of this, and I'm just going to take everybody behind the scenes a little bit. Earlier this week on Greeny, we had Micah Parsons on. And, Ryan, 10 minutes before he was supposed to appear for his hit, by way of Zoom, by the way. He wasn't even in person. He was by way of Zoom, which is fine. That happens sometimes. All of a sudden, his PR person hit us up and said, "Oh, no questions on the coaching staff." Wait, what? You just went through a coaching search. Could you imagine if Maxx Crosby sat down and I wasn't allowed to say, "Hey, so you just got a new head coach of Pete Carroll. What do you think?"
Anything but Pete Carroll questions. Well, what else are we
going to talk about?
Your rehab?
Right, exactly. So, but Max didn't do that. Micah Parsons did. His people reached out and said, "Hey," and we almost turned down the interview. We almost said, "Well, then what are we talking about?" That's just wild.
Again, that silence too is deafening, right? That tells me there's more to meet the eye, and Mike is not happy.
That's what it feels like. And
because if he is happy, then why would you leave it to us to extrapolate like
Right.
just these wild conspiracy money. Like, you know what? I haven't met him, and I'm looking forward to meeting him. We'll see what happens.
You know, right. Well, and Brian Schottenheimer was on the staff, so he knows who he is.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I don't even think it was probably Micah Parsons that said he didn't want to talk. It was probably his agent because he didn't want him to say something
That would
or because he knows he's going to
jeopardize a future contract,
or
they know
something.
that he's going to trade.
He's going to say something that might get clipped, and it's like, wait, hold on, right? So stay away from the contract or the head coaching conversation.
Yeah.
So to me, again,
Yeah.
what's not said sometimes is still said.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Read between the lines.
Exactly. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you enjoyed this week. It's not over for us. We still have all of Friday. Still going to be doing some work. Got some things going on Saturday here in New Orleans, and then flying back on Sunday. And as a matter of fact, landing early on Sunday morning, and then I'll be at the M Resort to do a watch party.
Nah, this guy doesn't stop. What?
Yes, I'll be at the watch party starting at 2:30. That's when I'm going to arrive at the M Resort on Sunday for the big game, hosting this party. It's going to be awesome. I encourage anyone, if you're in and around the area, please come out, hang out. Would love to chop it up with you. But, yeah, I mean, the grind don't stop. It starts, but it don't stop. There's a start button, but there ain't no stop. There's a gas pedal, but there ain't no brake.
We're adding all those to your bingo. There's a pigeon. It's probably smelling the same thing. I smell fried chicken, and I'm wondering why it's got a like this because there's two pigeons circling our heads like we're vulture. Like they're like that's the key. That's like
they've been here.
Like I'm a club. It starts like when the pigeons come, they start circling. They're like, it's time you go.
I think that they think that we've been here so long that we're dead. That's enough. That's it. It's over.
We're
it's
dead
done.
inside right now.
We are taking you all the way behind the scenes. So Raider Nation, we'll be back on this bad boy on Monday. We'll be talking about the Super Bowl. We'll recap everything going on with the Raiders. And I know that they've added a lot of coaches. We haven't gone over that. Don't worry. We'll get you all caught up on everything once we get back to the home studios and kind of get a little settled and maybe take a nap, but we'll do all that starting back on Monday. But Raider Nation, enjoy the weekend. Again, if you're going to be at the M Resort, it's going to be all good. Come on by, hang out, and watch the big game with me. And,
he keeps saying we for next week. This is news to me, by the way. So we're going to have a conversation.
I mean, we as a family.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right.
Anyway, Raider Nation, this guy's delirious, but he's Ryan Hogue, former Raiders wide receiver. Thank you, Ryan, for a fantastic week. I really do appreciate you, man. You've been awesome. Hit up Ryan on Twitter, at Ryan Scott Hogue, and give him a shout-out because, again, he's done a phenomenal job. So Ari's going to be mad at us. We've gone way over time. Shocking. That's what we do.
Sorry, Ari.
Yeah, sorry, Ari. But Raider Nation, have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the big game. We'll be back on Monday. And as always, just win, baby.
Go Eagles.
Facts.